really fun, but thank you.
Really fun.
He's coming over from the dark side.
Exactly.
I am.
Left.
So are you saying the mayor's the dark side? Is that what I just heard?
No, it's all those economic development directors over there, those.
And here I am in a black shirt, like fulfilling the impression.
Darth Vader. Y'all ready to start?
Dark star.
As soon as Jeannie sits down, we'll start. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Logan-Cache Airport Authority Board, and I'd like to welcome you all for attending and participating today. Our first item of business today is to approve our minutes from our May 1st meeting. Thank you, Janine, for all the work that you put into those every month. I'll entertain a motion, or if anybody has any questions or additions.
And I started to read it and then I didn't get through them, so it's like, oh, I never finished them, so I am reluctant to make the motion since I haven't read the entire.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion from Jeannie.
I'll second
Okay. Thank you for that second. And that's from John. Any more discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain, I wasn't here last time.
Okay, we have an abstention from Keegan. Okay, that brings us then to number 3 on our agenda, which is our manager's report.
Good morning, everybody. We've had a busy month. As I mentioned last month, we lost Kate, but in the meantime, we've hired 2 new part-time employees. Judson Mathis, who is fulfilling his Guard obligation, National Guard obligations this week and next week. And Matthias Conrad here on the second row. Very, very happy with these picks. The first day I introduced them, showed them around, and said, here's some projects I'm thinking about getting started. The next day I was off sick, and during that day, they did those projects.
No. That's
Very impressed with the drive, the motivation, the mental ability to look up what the FAA officially thinks, what the AC is. Anyway, I couldn't be happier with these 2 picks. Moving on, since our last meeting, runway 1735 paint project has been completed. So we've got new paint on the main runway. It's outlined in black. We do need to continue on with taxiway Bravo and the hold short lines to satisfy the FAA, but we have the new paint on the runway and it looks really good. Big improvement. The tower project, got some good news there. I reached out to the contractor. Just that day they had received the glass, which was what we were waiting for. They anticipate having the new roof on and the glass in by the end of next week. I mentioned to them our June 28th Air Fest. Did I say that right? Yes. And that we really wanted to have it done by them. Of course, they don't have any control when the glass gets shipped, but they do have control of once they get the glass, how soon they get it in. So they assured me that by the end of next week, they'll have that in, and we'll be looking better than we do now for when the public shows up. So we're happy about that. May 5th through 9th, we had the ARF certification with Logan City. We spent, Casey and I were involved in that. We're certified now as well to drive the truck and operate the truck. So we spent 4 hours each day in the classroom and then at least 4 hours out operating the truck with the apparatus, with the propane and the fire, and we got some experience putting on the gear, and I've got a lot of respect for those firefighters because it wasn't even that hot, but it was, early May, and that stuff's cumbersome, and you get hot, and
it weighs a lot.
It does weigh a lot, yeah.
It's hard to walk in it.
Yeah, so, but I got it, my hat's off to the Logan City Fire Department for not only what they do, but for watching out for Casey and I as we went through that training. There were times when I'd be the first one in to the simulated airplane with the hose, and they'd be behind me and making sure my equipment's in shape and that I'm doing the right things, and really had a good experience with them. We're developing what I consider a really good working relationship with Logan City Fire, and that's good because they're the ones that show up before and after and stay after the 139 flights, and it's good to have a good relationship with them. Continuing on with the ARF truck this week. So yearly we have to test the ARF truck for the foam concentration. It has to be above 2.8% of foam to water, and we didn't pass. The technician attributes it to because it's the new foam, it operates differently as it comes through the machine and the different mixing mechanisms and orifices, that because of it's a different foam that was in there before. You remember we replaced the foam. So this new foam mixes a little differently, and so currently right now I've talked to our inspector from the FAA, told him what shape our truck's in, that we're out of service 139 wise, we can't accept any commercial flights, airline flights, and he's okay with that. We've done things by the book that way to pull ourselves out of service. But going forward, the technician said it will take a couple weeks to get the parts in. He's putting together a list of parts that we need, and then it will come to me, I'll approve it, and then he'll send off for the order, and then just a matter of him putting those new parts in. I did have a question, maybe, I don't know if now's the time to ask it, but when it comes to things like this and being reimbursed by the Utah State, is there a mechanism in place to do that, or do I just come to the board and say, here's the expense for 139, and then it's passed on by someone to the board, or is this a good time for that
Okay to take
question?
You wanna
that. I'm okay to take it directly if the board's all right with that. If you'll get me whatever costs that are incurred,
Okay,
we'll get those to the university.
okay. Because this is one of those things where,
Although, does the university, I mean, do they need like an invoice from us? You're just saying do it directly from their invoice rather than passing it through the county finance?
It
What
would go through the county's financials and then show as a reimbursement from the university.
so we would pay it, and then I would show you that we've paid it, and then the reimbursement would come.
Yes, but if
Okay.
you have like an estimate or a.
Yeah, give them a heads up, hey, this is coming. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just had, as I was preparing, I thought, I'm not sure how this works, so I'll ask. Let's see, moving on. Pavement maintenance program. We have heard from people, and we've listened, that the pavement around the airport needs attention, and it does. Some of that pavement is really dry and thirsty. And so we have been, we've reached out to 4 different contractors who are involved in that kind of work. I've received 2 bids back. One, the cost varies widely, and I'm not sure why yet. The first one was about $27,000, and I'm talking about the areas down the Alpha Row, Bravo Row, the older section of hangars there, starting at the ramp all the way back. We're looking at refurbishing, ceiling cracks, top coat sealant in that area. The first estimate was about $27,000. The second one was nearly $70,000 for the same job. And so,
Have you talked to our Public Works Department?
no,
Will you talk to them as well? And
Sure.
ask them if it's something they're able to do, and if so, get a bid from them? I know they are able to do some of those types of maintenance repairs in-house. I'm not sure what all needs to be done out there, but if you'll talk to Matt about that.
okay.
If nothing else, he might refer you to some other contractors.
I did have Jeremy Hudson reach out to me this week about, hey, we need a place to store some of our rocks for chip and sealing roads. So
Yeah.
that goes right along with that. So
In exchange for that,
yeah, so that's a good idea. I will check with them as well. They probably have some good information on maybe why the costs vary so much. But we want to, since we're getting in a better place financially, we want to then turn around and invest it back into the airport. We would like to take care of this pavement before it becomes now we got to replace the pavement. So we're working towards that. An RCO, the remote communications outlet, has been brought up before. Hey, if I'm an IFR flight, I can't get a hold of anyone to get my clearance while I'm on the ground. I have to use my cell phone. So I've looked into that. I've talked to an FAA technician. It turns out that is not an airport function. That is an FAA function. We are unable to install that. That the FAA wants to be in charge of doing that. So we just need to make an official request to the FAA. They talked about putting it out on the mountain over above Newton, and they said those towers up there, I think that's the mountain. He said those towers are pretty full and there may not be room. Anyway, it's going to be a process, but we are working on that. I've heard the public's comments on that, and I agree with them. But it's not something we can technically do at the airport based on the FAA's comments.
Do you have an approximate cost? Is that in the budget? Do you have funds budgeted?
We wouldn't budget, we wouldn't fund that. The FAA would.
Got
Yes,
it.
ma'am. Yeah, it's like the Mauser lights at the end of runway 17. That's their equipment.
So they fund it, because some things like the paint, they require, but we pay for it, but this
Yeah,
in particular.
you're right. Yeah. Yep.
So are you talking about, what you're saying is this is a radio repeater that would be up on a tower that would allow them to connect from the ground to the Salt Lake Tower?
It wouldn't be the tower, it'd be air route traffic control or a clearance delivery. So when you take off on an IFR flight plan, you need to talk with a controller to say, so you filed your flight plan and you've said, I'm going to go here, 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 and here. And when you get your delivery, they may say, hey, actually, I need you to amend that from here to here to here. And so that's when you do those, is on that radio call. Or they would say, cleared as filed. Here's your squawk code. Be on this frequency. It's necessary. It's needed. It's cumbersome to have to call on the phone. They're right. We need to do something about it, but it's not something we can do. We have to urge the FAA, please install this. So that's where we're at.
And currently, they can't do that until they're up above the mountain?
Right. I don't know what altitude they get to do it, but yeah. About 6,000? So about 1,500 feet above the ground. Also, I'm wrapping up here. Land lease billing information for this year's leases. My office has been reviewing the billing for accuracy, and as soon as we get done with that process, making sure we've got good addresses, email addresses, the amount is correct. Here in the next couple of weeks, we'll be forwarding that to the finance department for bills to be sent out. So that's moving forward. Landing fees. May we went live, was our first month with Vector billing for landing fees. Monday I got an email from them. No, I got an email from them on Tuesday. For the month of May, the gross was $3,163.10. I did make a small adjustment. They had Life Flight, the helicopter that had come in and landed twice, and we're going to charge them. And I had them omit that, put them on our base list, since they are in and out of our airport and hangar there occasionally. So it was $23 twice that I had removed for that. But there was another EMS helicopter that had come in at the first of the month who isn't based here that will get a landing fee. So that's my report. Are there any questions that I can answer for the board?
Any questions from the board? Bob, you mentioned that there was a question about a hangar.
Yeah. So Flight Line 1 has recently been sold to Andy Checketts and Corey Gaethje. Are they here? They approached John and I 2 days ago. Right now they're a 40 by 40 hangar. They're the southernmost east-facing hangar on the flight line. and they're in the area where the lots are large and the hangars are small. And these two gentlemen approached John and I with the request to expand or make their hangar bigger. Not sideways, but depth-wise. They'd like to expand at least 20 feet, and John and I walked it, and there's about 40 feet of space back there, and there's a telephone pole. We asked them, John actually recommended that they talk to Logan City for permitting first and then come to us. They have done that. They say that in that section, Logan City would grandfather in firewalls. They have to have a 1 hour firewall in there, and that's the answer. And so they wanted to come to us. I mentioned to them, they texted me this morning on my way here, hey, can we get on the schedule? They're not here yet, but I thought I'd bring it up and see if we could, if the board has any objection to them expanding deeper into so they can fit more airplanes in their hangar.
What were you talking about firewalls?
So right now there's 3 feet between them and the adjacent hangar.
Correct.
And if they extend back, that will put them also 3 feet away from the next hangar over. So right now, the back of their wall is 20 feet away from the next hangar
Get oriented.
that goes 90 degrees to them. So this one would put them back, and their wall would come over next to this hangar. But they're already this close over here, but we had the question, okay, but what about if you're closer to the next hangar?
So they have to firewall the whole thing.
It's all dead
Yeah,
space.
according to them this morning, they've gotten an answer that they're satisfied with from Logan City's zoning and building
Yeah,
permitting.
they want to extend.
So,
Into
and of course, they would have to keep working with them for
Back to
their
that
inspection and, hey, does this work, and those things, but they did,
And it changes their lease, correct?
yes, of course.
This one.
Any thoughts or,
Want to expand to that power pole.
that space they would expand to is otherwise unused, right?
correct, it's
It's-
largely unused, yeah.
Dead space behind a couple
Yeah.
of hangars.
I see it as nothing but a benefit to the airport. They have plans of refurbishing this older hangar, making it look better, improving the aesthetics from the outside. They're gonna insulate and drywall inside anyway, just because that's how they'd like it to be. They just like to expand back so they can fit, there's 2 of them, they'd like to fit 2 airplanes in there instead of currently now they could only fit 1.
Okay.
Did Jed have a comment there?
I did have a quick comment. With expanding an existing or building a new hangar, just making sure that they get a 7460 for airspace clearance and make sure environmental clearance is good for any building on the airport. Even if it's expanding an existing building, it's a new building as far as the FAA for.
Gotcha. I'll mention that to them.
Okay.
Okay,
Does anyone have any concerns with that approach? Okay, hearing none, it sounds like we're fine with that.
okay.
Thank you for that report. Anything else?
Not yet.
Okay, anything else from the board? Any other questions for our manager? Okay, thank you so much, Bob. Appreciate all the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Making good progress. That brings us to item 3B on our agenda, which is an update on our capital improvement projects.
For capital improvement, I'll start with one that's coming up, just based off of what Bob was just discussing regarding the pavement maintenance, the oil, crack seal, fog seal around the hangars. There is a scheduled project. While he was talking, I pulled up your state CIP list, and are scheduled for a 2026 project for pavement, a state-funded pavement maintenance project. It's going to be tackling Taxiway Bravo is the purpose of that project. One thing to possibly look into is doing a second schedule, and then you might get economy of scale and add in, the state wouldn't be covering the cost of any cost associated with pavement maintenance in front of hangars down the taxi lanes, but there might be a cost savings for just economy of scale. So when that project goes out to bid. So one potential thing we can talk about. So. As far as the current and ongoing projects, so we have Taxiway Kilo, or Taxi Lane Kilo, Taxiway Charlie, SRE, the paint, Pappy's, EV grant, and master plan. The master plan is, we had a great open house a couple months ago. It is under FAA review. They technically have about 90 days to do that review. The fastest I've ever seen it is 2 months. The longest I've seen it is 11. So we are at their mercy. I did check it this morning. It still is under review for their airspace review. And we'll definitely let you know as soon as we hear anything on that. The EV grant, I'll be getting with you, sorry, on that follow-up. The Taxi Lane Kilo, Taxiway Charlie for a cost savings for the airport, we did survey and geotech together. The survey, talking with Connor this morning, they finally got the survey data back. It's something that took about a month and a half longer than we were anticipating with the survey company, but it is going along well. The specs, the plans are pretty much all of the specifications. The construction safety phasing plan, the engineer design report are all completed. We're just waiting on that final piece to get that DWG files for the survey. The SRE, do have the scope signed now, record of negotiations completed, and the specs are definitely under progress to, even though we can't just go and say, we want to go buy that truck. It's not like going to a car dealership and saying, you want to get this one off of the lot. In order to meet the right funding requirements, it's got to go through a full design spec and then go out to the public for acquisition of that. Really excited to hear, happy about the paint. So that one's great to get that one done. And the last one being the Pappy's. This could be really worthwhile to look at funding locally versus the FAA, just the amount of cost savings and what you might have to give up on other projects. So I think Connor's been back and forth, I think, with you. I'm not sure. Okay. So I just got a quick note from that one from Connor. So, but any questions on those projects?
When's the SRE? Is that next?
It's going on right now, but it probably depends on the equipment and availability. Some stuff, very limited stuff is in stock. A lot of things with snow equipment, you're usually looking 1 year out after you give them the money. Fire engines are about 2 years.
So realistically, it's not going to be for this winter?
Realistically, highly doubtful, unless we get lucky. But I would not anticipate it for this winter. Just if it's anything like, it's kind of a nationwide problem.
Not because of the funding, but because of the equipment availability?
Correct. No. But like I said, there definitely have been times where someone had ordered a piece of equipment and then they canceled their order. It's pretty much identical to what you want and you can get lucky. So never say never, but I would be cautious on the realistic timeline.
Okay, thank you. Any other updates for us?
That covers all the projects. Any questions on?
And anticipated dates for pre-bid meeting and on the two construction projects, Kilo and Charlie?
Probably end of this month, first part of next month is a tentative right now.
We can probably plan on it being done before the batch plant closes this fall.
That's the goal, yes.
Great. Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you very much for that update. That brings us to number 4 on our agenda, and 4A is an update on the Cache Air Fest. Professor Barron.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm dressed for our summer camp. We got 36 campers from across the country, from Georgia and Iowa, Michigan, Texas, Arizona, and they're all out here at the airport flying airplanes and helicopters, and it's a great opportunity, again, showcase our airport to folks from all across the country. It's one of the premier youth summer camps in the nation. I brought some posters here for the Cache Air Fest. I've got 2 different sizes. I just emailed Janine the Training Education Summit poster. I was all out, and I meant to print some more up before today, but I sent them to her so she can send out as well as this poster. So the Air Fest starts on Friday. So the Training Education Summit is an opportunity for folks from all across the region and the state of Utah to come to the campus at Utah State University. And on Friday, there's going to have presentations, everything from the modernization of Part 141 to the rotor pathways, hands-on training, Rusty Pilot Seminar. And last year, the conference was $175. This year, it's only $25 when it includes lunch and parking. So you can't beat the price. So come to the campus for all these activities for the Training Education Summit. And that evening is where we kick off the Cache Air Fest. At 1800 in FL9, we're going to have a reception with live music from the Cache County Big Band, the Swing Dance Band. We're going to have our air show performers will be there. We'll give out the awards for the annual awards for the Training and Education Summit portion. That's from the Division of Aeronautics. And so you'll come meet the performers. It's only $10 for the food, but it's an opportunity to come to the airport and kick things off. That evening, we're also going to give out the awards for the art contest. And the art contest is for youth from 6 to 18 years old. And thanks to Leading Edge, those students that win will get a flight in an aircraft. They'll be able to go up. So the idea is they'll come up early for Friday, get to fly in the aircraft, then come to the evening event where they'll be recognized. One of the highlights this evening, many of you know Nancy Potter. Her grandfather was Floyd Hansen, the father of Logan Airport. He was the first airport manager, helped pave it, Civilian Pilot Training Act. She's going to give a presentation, bring some artifacts, and talk about our airport. Talk about the history of our airport and why we have the airport the way we do. And I think it's a great tribute to Floyd Hansen and towards the legacy of the Logan-Cache Airport. That'll be about 10 minutes, and then we'll have more music and dancing at the airport. The flight team will be there to set up and serve ice cream. They'll be like candy stripers. They'll have the red and white hats and aprons and scoop up some Aggie ice cream. And that brings us to Saturday. So Saturday is going to be a big event. We've not had this event in 10 years and only a few times before that in the several decades, based upon Scott Weaver's memory and others that have been here, right? So we're going to open up the parking at about 8:45-ish on the abandoned runway. And at 9 o'clock, we're going to open up the ramp. So we're going to be able to have shuttles. We've got 2 minibuses reserved from Utah State. The flight team will shuttle some of those folks that need extra assistance from the abandoned runway to the main ramp. And you're going to see that's going to be the static displays will start just about on FL14. And the Wasatch Group has agreed to have some airplanes out and be open. USU ramp will have some of their aircraft on display, and some of the other education aircraft will be up in that area from other flight schools in the state of Utah. In the center, right where the refurbished tower is going to be, that's where the show center is going to be. Our air boss, Bob Evans, will have his station there to be able to make sure the show on 10/28 is active. The food trucks will be in the center of the runway, and our static displays, starting with the historic B-17 and B-25. We've already got some other historic aircraft from Utah invited, and hopefully we'll be able to get those all committed out, as well as tail draggers and Aviat Huskies, and anybody that wants to bring an RV or something in. Crash Cruise In is going to bring 9 to 12 vehicles. They've confirmed they'll be stationed in next to the big hangar where the STEM Center is going to be, and so they'll be right off the ramp there to bring people into the STEM Center, which will be in the large hangar. And the career will be in there as well. So we'll have some aviation career employment specialists there. You'll be able to see that in that type of the area of the hangar. We're looking for volunteers to help out with the STEM Center, to help out with some of the setup. Civil Air Patrol and Scouts are going to be there to help park cars and help out with those areas on the ramp. We're really excited for Leading Edge support because they're going to be a big part here, being able to offer that time frame. Just a reminder, the NOTAM of the airport being closed goes from 10 to 1500. So right at 10 o'clock, the NOTAM will be in effect. Skydive Ogden will come, they'll jump the flag. Barry Hancock in his yak will circle the skydivers, have a big grand opening. The morning's air show will include our own Brad Worston, Red Thunder, which is both Barry Hancock and Carl Gashler for a two-ship, and then they each have a single-ship performance. We're coordinating smoke oil and everything. We're pretty excited. Danny Sorensen will be flying in his biplane. This is his last season of flying, so we may be one of his last air shows, local Utah. We're really excited about him. Though also, we're looking at 10 to 12, and then about that time, Bob Evans may release the airport slowly for a few airplanes to take off and land from between 12 to 1. Then at 1 o'clock, we're looking at kicking off the afternoon with a flyby of RV formation, the Morgan Air Force, if you've seen them come in for the breakfast. So there's a couple opportunities for something, and then a repeat of the morning show to bring some good demonstrations. We anticipate at 1500, the aerial demonstrations will be over. The ramp will be still closed, but will allow airplanes to take off from the south parking area. And then by 1600, everything will close on the ramp and we'll start to move people off. And by 1700, we should have everything cleaned up. So it's a very busy day, but it's a wonderful opportunity to bring people to the airport open house. We've submitted to Cache Valley Daily. We've talked to the radio. We're getting newspapers out. If you go to Angie's, you'll see posters. We've had them from Wendover to Preston already, and we're sending them out to more airports in the area this week. So really exciting opportunity. We appreciate the city and the county for supporting this with the Airport Authority Board. In the past, in 10 years ago in 2015, there was about a $2,000 in-kind donation through support. And that support from the board helped pay for some of the things like the trash, the porta potties, those kind of things to coordinate at a cheaper rate through the county and city services. The law enforcement EMS, that was part of the $2,000 that the board, I believe that's the amount, had supported. But right now, our biggest ask for everybody here is publicity. Talk to your friends, put it on social media, take the posters up, let people know that this is a wonderful premier event to highlight the airport. We want to showcase not just where we are with the airport, but again, what it could be for the future. And so we're hoping that that evening of the Friday, maybe have a master plan poster that'll be nice. Bring a couple of the historic posters over, and then we'll put them in the STEM Center so people come in and take a look at it. Let them be educated about what the airport is doing now and in the future. Any questions from the board about this event that's going to be on the 27th and 28th of June?
No, it sounds,
Seen anything from State Aeronautics on registration for their portion?
Okay, that was on the posters I brought last time, and again, I apologize. I handed them all out to people, and the printer didn't have them ready. But Janine has one. I will send it. There's a QR code to register. So this QR code will take you right to the Friday night event to register for that. This is QR codes for the art contest. And on the other poster that she'll send out, please, we'll have the QR code to register for the Friday event. And again, all Friday event during the day will be on campus. We're going to have helicopters on the quad, drone flying, drone building. You want to see a jet engine test cell run. You want to learn about composites. There's going to be a lot of presentations and seminars. The speakers are being confirmed. So you'll be able to see that this week. But the registration will be on that. I have it on my computer. I can pull it up and show it you afterwards as well.
Did you say helicopters on the quad?
That the USU quad, yes. So we'll be able to bring a helicopter and land it right on the quad there. So we'll be able to see aviation right there.
it's happened before, hasn't it?
It happens every aviation week and day on the quad in August. For the last, I think, 5 years now, we put a helicopter on the quad. And every new university president, we fly him to the quad during aviation week.
How does that get permitted?
So they go through the risk management at the university, and they make sure they file all the FAA permits. But you'd be pretty impressed how easy it is for helicopters to get off airport landing approval.
Because we've had a couple of, actually we had one wanting to land in one of our parks for something, and I mean, anyway, I'll talk to you later about
We could talk to you about that. Like the Bridgeland had an event. We've flown a helicopter right there. And it's under the approach end. We just have to clear it and talk to the airport and on the radios and make it work. EMS is really good about getting approval to land just about anywhere. No. Yeah, but there's opportunities. We can talk about it. But again, I just want to say thanks to the Airport Authority Board and for your support and for those that serve on the committee. Right after this meeting at 9:30, the Airfest group's going to get together to talk about some of the finalization. But I just want to officially announce FAA has approved us. So we are not just an Airfest, we're an official air show as well. So you can use that word this year. We got all the approval, but it's a game on. We're ready to go. We're really excited about all the folks that have been talking about this for a long time. And if anybody wants to sponsor the evening dinner on Friday night, it's great publicity for your business. We're still working on getting a few sponsors for some of the highlights of the event. You could sponsor Brad Worston or sponsor Red Thunder. Lots of opportunities to help and get your publicity out there as well.
Thank you so much for all the work that you've put into this. It sounds like it's going to be an amazing event. Are there any other questions for board members? Okay, thank you so much, Baron. That brings us then to the next item on our agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you, which is an update on the informal glider group activity in July. Mr. Kidd?
I was having a discussion with John Kerr about glider operations at the airport and mentioned that there was an upcoming group. There's a group coming in July or August. I wasn't sure because I'm not really involved, just peripherally. He asked me to get on the minutes and clear the dates and also to request a meeting with the Airport Operations Committee to discuss the glider situation and to get the dates cleared. The dates, this group plans to be here Monday, July 21st through Saturday, July 26th. And because it's an informal get-together, likely there will be gliders and trailers stuff here July 20th through the 27th, which includes the Sundays. In the past, when they've done activities here, they typically take the trailers out and park them on the edge of the closed runway, the abandoned runway, and work off of there. And so the guys will be coming in that have done glider operations here before. They're familiar with the area. I would like to request a meeting with the operations committee to discuss the glider situation. We have been operating here for 25 to 30 years, and the big conflict right now appears to be with airport management. And I have some safety concerns over those things. So if we could get that committee to meet, I'd really like to attend that meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bob, if you'll help coordinate that, that would be great. Thank you. Any other questions from the board on that?
How many gliders do you anticipate? Any idea?
10.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that update. That brings us then to item 4C on our agenda, which is a discussion about clarification of our lease agreement language. Bob?
So we have a new lease agreement which includes language for us to be able to increase the amount based on the cost of living per year. And one tenant who I approached with a new lease said, hey, here's your new lease. He said, there's no limit to how high it can go, and he would like some language in there that indicates, okay, you can increase it by this much, but is there a ceiling? He also wanted to know if 10 years was the only length of the lease that we offered. So before he would sign, he wanted a discussion or some clarification on those two issues.
Do you want longer or shorter?
He wants longer.
Well, if we put in cost of living, I don't understand the no ceiling, because if you increase the lease for cost of living, that's just, it's
Anchored to that metric.
right, it's anchored to that, and I mean, we're not saying, well, cost of living or whatever we decide.
Right.
It's, if cost of living is 1%, that's how much the lease can go up.
Yep.
But then the next year, if it's 5%, then it can go up 5%.
Okay.
But I don't understand the ceiling on that. Are we saying within 10 years, we're not going to allow it to go up more than X? Is that what he wants?
He just wanted some sort of language in there, or he wanted to talk about some sort of language being in there that limited the amount. So I don't, and I'm not for or against, I'm just presenting the question.
I know, I
Yeah.
know. I'm just curious as to how you determine a ceiling when your metric is cost of living.
Okay,
It's a floating limit. It's tied to
Excuse me?
that. It's in effect, a floating limit. It's tied to that,
variable APR.
cost.
I mean, I don't know whether everybody else wants to say within a 10-year period, you're not gonna increase it by more than X,
I-
but that's.
I'm comfortable with the way it's written.
Okay,
Does the cost of living just tie to the federal COLA? Is that how it's?
yeah,
determined?
yeah.
Okay, and does anybody else have any thoughts on that part of it? And then the other part is the time limit.
Yeah, so technically, excuse me, that's not the right word. Traditionally, we've just gone with 10 years. And there are other leases that, as I go through and review leases, some are 20, some have had longer terms. But it's my understanding that we only wrote those on a case-by-case basis because the lending institution who was lending on that hangar, for the tenant to be able to purchase it and qualify for it, they needed a lease that covered the life of the loan. Otherwise, we stick to the 10 years. John, does that sound like, did I say that right? Okay.
We're not treating everyone equally.
So is that still part of our tradition?
We've been doing 10-year leases, and when he asked the question, I didn't have an answer. I don't know why we do 10-year leases.
Well, we're kind of trying to standardize and get everything
Right.
as leases expire, get everything the same.
Right,
I'm okay with the 10-year time period, and if somebody needs something different, they can come to us and we can consider that.
Yeah,
You would
again,
want them
but
to-
I have a problem with, you make exceptions case by case. I think that sets us up for.
The only reason I would say, I mean, the reason that he gave, which is the lending institution requiring something longer, might be something we should consider if that's the case. But I don't think just because somebody wants it longer is a reason to change it.
I agree.
so we'll continue on with the same language in the lease as far as the COLA and standard 10 years unless there's a lending need to increase it.
And it probably should come to us if that's the case.
Okay,
It would need to because that language is approved by this board, and if we're going to deviate from that, we would need.
perfect. Okay,
That takes it off your, you don't
okay,
have to.
yeah, thank you. Okay, that clarifies things for me. Thank
I
you.
appreciate it, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much for the update on that item. That brings us then to the last item on our agenda, which is item 4D, discussion and consideration of alternate airport authority board makeup. And Mayor Daines, would you like to start on this item?
Again, we've had a public hearing at the last meeting. We discussed it in the previous meeting and then again had public comment at the last meeting. Again, just as we look at the airport's future and, adjusting to what's going on these days, does it make sense to allow the executive or the board to appoint an additional member to represent USU again with the growth? I mean, we've talked about the need for a tower with everything going on. I mean, that's something, if we were to move forward with that, the cost would have to be, the university would have to help us, potentially some legislative help. Again, it's just something we were proposing. I mean, there are still 7 members of the board, so it's not like they have an outsized weight on the board. It just, they've been a good partner. They're stepping up on the Part 139 with the flight school, their airport management program. It just, it's something that we discussed and there seemed to be some interest in, and that's why we proposed the language and again, had the public hearing there. We had a couple of emails and, a couple of folks were not interested in that, but again, there were also folks that thought that was a good idea, so.
Thank you for that introduction, Mayor. What are the thoughts of other board members?
So is this a discussion for a decision, or is this
It's on the agenda for discussion and consideration, so if it's agendized in a way that we could make a decision if we wanted to. Just to clarify, this board doesn't get to decide the board makeup. Our board makeup is determined by the agreement between Logan City and Cache County, and the governing bodies of those two organizations would be the ones who would have to
So
formally agree.
we were only sending a recommendation.
Yes, all we would do if we wanted to change it, we would send a request then to the Logan Municipal Council and to the Cache County Council, asking them to make a change to the agreement they have between the two of them.
An agreement, it's, you know, the one that came out in the packet that we've been discussing for the past couple of months. So it would be amendment number 1 to the interlocal agreement, Logan-Cache Airport Authority.
So this is not any element of public hearing, right?
We had a public hearing about this last time.
I know.
We don't have it on for a public hearing today.
Okay, thank you.
And again, originally, we had the language in the amendment so that the Cache County executive and the mayor appointed that, you know, the USU member. The current draft that we're discussing, it looks like it does say 1 member representing Utah State University appointed by the Airport Authority Board. So I guess the name would be brought to this group for their approval, and that's kind of how the at-large, isn't that, let's see,
Yes, the at-large is 2/3 vote.
right. This one is not a 2/3, but it is appointed by the Airport Authority Board, so.
So what Mayor Daines is referring to is a proposed amendment document that is in your packet, amendment number 1 to the interlocal agreement, Logan-Cache Airport Authority. And this is the document that we would send to the Logan Municipal Council and the Cache County Council and ask them to approve this. And if they do, then Mayor Daines and I would sign it on behalf of those two agencies, and that would amend our interlocal agreement. If we wanted to recommend this, we could make changes to what's being suggested here. We could make changes to the appointment, to the numbers, to who it is. And I believe the only changes here that are being recommended are under number 1.1, the board shall consist of 8 members. That's currently 7. And then under 1.2F, 1 member representing Utah State University appointed by the Airport Authority Board. The rest of those, I believe, are the same as they currently are in the agreement. And I don't think anything on that back page is changing. So that's essentially all that would be recommended to change, is to change the total number to 8 and to say that 1 member representing Utah State University appointed by this board.
I would suggest that we put it at the same level of appointment as we do the independent members, so it would be a 2/3 vote. So they're the same.
Would you restate that for me?
I would recommend that if the Airport Authority Board is appointing a person from the university, that it have the same requirements as the independent person that they already appoint. So it would be a 2/3 majority.
Which would be 5 votes. 5 out of the 7, the other 7.
Does anyone have concerns with a board that has an even number?
We did discuss that, and that's not typical. You're absolutely right. And at one time, we had talked about potentially adding 2 USU representatives, which would have made the uneven number, but I think the group felt like that was maybe too much, especially to start with initially. So, you know, how often do you have a tie vote? But you're correct, that is atypical, but I think given the size of the group, at least I'm probably comfortable with that. But
There's the other option. If you look at number 1, 2G on the list. The directors of economic development for the city and the county may serve as ex officio non-voting members of the board. So technically, we do have 9 members right now. We have 7 voting members and 2 non-voting members. And that's another option, is to create another non-voting board seat.
Again, you know, if you get a board too large, it gets to be a little unwieldy as well, but,
There were a couple other claims that I did my best to investigate, as I did read over the public comment notes. One of the claims was that the only reason we have Part 139 is because USU. Is that an accurate claim for primarily for football?
Yeah, if it weren't for those flights coming in and out, we wouldn't need that level of certification.
Okay.
and that's why USU has now agreed, and they've reimbursed us for the cost for what it was the last years. But again, they've stepped up and agreed and to pay for those costs, because otherwise we would have discontinued the service, because it does benefit them.
And along those lines, there was another claim that this was the first time they've contributed since they've been using it for the last several years. Is that accurate?
They may have been billed for like the ARF cost, kind of direct standby cost, do you
They've
know?
never been billed previously.
Okay.
Never?
Never.
Never that you're aware of? Okay.
And again,
I'm not aware of
we
it.
just never, we never asked. And
Okay.
so I think it just,
There was a third item, I think I'm on number 3, where it was mentioned that part of the benefit they receive, like a lot of public organizations, is a tax exempt status for the hangars. I think that's accurate, right? And I tried to look into how much that represents, and last year it was about 45,000. So however many years they've been enjoying that, that's a financial benefit as well. So,
but again, I mean, their campus, you know, is in Logan City and they're tax exempt. I mean,
Sure.
they don't, that's just the way it is. And, you know, the
Yeah.
county doesn't get taxes if there's things, you know, for
Right.
the ag farm out in the county. It's just, that's one of the benefits that they
Sure.
get.
yeah, there was just a question about,
Yeah.
well, as part of the discussion of financial benefits, that one came up, so I was curious to
Yeah.
put a number on
Yeah,
it.
that's interesting, because I've never heard the number, so
Yeah, so
wonder what their benefit is for their whole campus, but, you know, it just.
probably much larger.
Yeah, that's just determined by the state and
Sure.
it's the way it is.
And then I guess the last concern is more of an optics concern. Is there a concern that right after they contributed, then a board seat is being considered? Does it present a pay-to-play optic?
And again, I think part of it, I mean, this study that we had the consultant come in and do, I mean, we realized there were a lot of things at the airport that we needed to take a look at, that, you know, he recommended changes. Some of them made sense for us, some of them didn't, but it really brought to, I think, this board's attention. I mean, maybe some folks were aware of it. I wasn't really aware of kind of the Part 139 ramifications. So as soon as we realized that and the cost, that's, again, I mean, John, you know the history. I mean, maybe we'd asked the university before, I don't know, but once we sat down and showed them the data and discussed it, they said, yeah, we do need to participate here. And I think we've had some good conversations. And that was a direct result of that consultant's report, that we realized we needed to take a look at it. So,
That was with Dr. Jones.
right.
Do we know, just to follow up on Keegan's last question, do we know when this idea was first proposed of adding a USU seat? Did that come up in the first meeting with USU? Did
No,
they request
They did
it?
not request it.
They've-
I mean, I think Brett and I, as we had conversations with them and looked at the future possibilities, I mean, again, the traffic has increased with USU, there's no question. I mean, I'm hearing as a safety issue, it would probably be really good to start planning for a tower. I mean, we know that's a huge expense. And a lot of that is because of the additional USU traffic. And that would help their training program and everything else. So again, to bring them into the partnership that we're all trying to work toward, maybe this future goal, it just seems to make sense to have them, again, 1 seat of 8, 1 seat of 9, however we do it, to be part of the discussion if they're, I mean, their contribution just for the part, you know, it was a lot more than the city and county put in annually for that. So,
Yeah.
But
again,
it's not a pay-to-play, remember that.
No, and Keegan,
They
that's
didn't
a
ask
good
for it.
question. I
Yeah,
appreciate
it is.
someone
It is a
asking
good
that question.
question.
That's a
You're
very, very fair question. Two totally independent conversations. And so it was really us, as we were going through the Part 139 expenses, they understand it, they get it, and their commitment level is they want to support the university. I mean, we've got a great program out there, and so it's beyond the 139. There's more to the airport than just the 139. And so we, as part of those conversations, we just thought maybe there's some benefit to the board to have one of their representatives so they have some visibility, see exactly what's going on. They are not expecting it. It is not part of them reimbursing for the 139. Has nothing to do with that. But I appreciate someone being sensitive to that.
yeah, that's,
Well, and I also think that it's important for us to consider the future growth of the airport and the future use of the airport. And as the university's participation in the flights that go in and out of the airport, perhaps it's wise for us to add them to the committee that is in charge of the future and in charge of, you know, operations today and how we're going to grow in the future, and have them be an active partner in that so that we neither impose something on them nor they impose something on us. And it becomes more of a partnership arrangement.
I really appreciate the partnership we've always had with Utah State University, and they're literally in the front row of our meetings every time they're here. We just heard from Professor Barron about all of the work that they're putting into our air show and the aeronautics conference, and they are great partners. They always have been great partners, and I'm sure they will continue to do that regardless of what decision we make about this board seat. I just want to say thank you to them, and that we value, regardless of what we decide, we do value your participation and partnership.
and on the Part 139, I mean, I've heard some comments, well, it only benefits the university, but there are some benefits to the airport in general. I mean, no, we didn't have to have the new pavement markings unless we had the Part 139, but they're kind of nice for everybody, right? I mean, because they're there. Or, again, if there are other things that are required, I mean, the new PAPI light. I mean, so, and the ARP truck, I mean, if there happened to be a fire that was non-USU related, the truck is still there, the equipment. So, and again, just having the snow equipment upgraded because, some of those bigger flights come in. So I think there are indirect benefits to the airport in general from having that. Although, again, if we didn't have it, we'd get by without it, without those upgrades, but, so.
Mr. Chairman, the study referenced by Dr. Jones suggested a very different makeup of the entire board, if we're being really direct about his suggestion. And I think based upon, prior to Kirk's and I involvement in this body, I suspect there were conversations that the board had about that particular suggestion. Wasn't privy to them, so I don't know what that color to the conversation looked like, but we've been operating as such as though we're not going to entertain his strong suggestion that it be a lot fewer elected or political appointees. That being said, as we bring up the consideration of any different mix, the point has been brought up, and I really appreciate it, Councilwoman Jeannie brought it up, that growth in the future, there are cities that border airport property that have expressed, to me at least in my economic development capacity, some desire to participate in conversations in the direction of what that future might be. That begs a question of, are they willing to buy in? And I'm not trying to project too much what Councilman Keegan noted about how many years of costs that these two public entities have incurred, the city and county, for the benefit of one major user, whether it be property taxes that weren't paid in kind of like a payment in lieu of taxes sort of thing, that the federal government does with a lot of public lands to counties, or whether it's the Part 139, those cities, would they be willing to buy in for past, subsidies that these two bodies have had, or accept any legal liabilities or risk management moving forward? I say that and tie a bow around it to maybe be undone here in a second. But as I look at the current membership, I wonder what those who founded this board were intending for the two other members to be appointed by the city, two by the county, and then the one member at large. What perspective those were hoped to bring to this body as it considered decisions. For example, might one of those be USU? Out of those, two from the city, two from the county, one at large, you've got 5 other members. One of those could already be USU. Now, I realize that's very uncomfortable because it would assume, therefore, that someone who's currently serving wouldn't serve in that capacity. But it's been my casual observation that Mr. Snow and John Kerr represent small users, and Brett represents a large, user. And in much the same way, could one of those seats be USU without either expanding the board or, I don't know. I'm just throwing out a what-if question that's probably already been debated. I'm sorry, I can't speak to whether or not it has. I wasn't party to those, but if there's just some other membership opportunity that's been explored, or even as Jeannie was talking, I thought, what about an advisory board that is a secondary tier, not to overly complicate anything, but is there another more suitable way for a renter that doesn't have liability, whether legally or financially, but is a significant user? Because I think Kirk and I both professionally would encourage this body, and you clearly already know this, they're a huge economic input, right, to the economy broadly, not just the airport property. So I think what Chairman Zook noted is really important, that none of this would want to be seen as hostile towards the university.
I think maybe to sum up Sean's point is, are we asking the right question? And I wonder if the question we're asking is, should USU get a seat on the board? And I wonder if the question we should ask is, what is the most ideal composition of this board? I don't know if we've entertained that and discussed it at length and come up with a good answer just on that principle.
And that's what this discussion is for, and we don't necessarily have to decide today. We could continue that discussion.
Yeah, that's the one I'd be interested in having.
And Sean referred to kind of one of the bigger things that Dr. Jones recommended, and that is the board doesn't function that well because there's kind of 2 entities. One should take it, either Cache County or Logan, and you mentioned that the other cities, do they pay to play? But essentially, we all pay taxes to the county. I mean, everyone. And so, is that a long-term discussion again? So essentially, Logan citizens are being taxed twice. I mean, it's not a huge amount that we contribute, and it is what it is. But Logan citizens do get doubly taxed because we all pay into what the county pays to the airport, and then Logan pays as well. And so again, your comment about other cities being involved, again,
And the regionality of this economic impact versus a singular municipality.
Yeah. And I think, the airport is growing. I mean, that's what we're all discussing, and it's, whether we agree with all of Dr. Jones' points or not, and we disagree with some of them, but, we're trying to think about the future and how we move forward.
One
Well,
other
Dr.
thought,
Okay,
just
go ahead.
for the immediate discussion and the immediate deliberation on USU's participation. I mean, it was brought up that given that they're a significant user, they do so much and impact the airport so much, but to bring them into a position where they're involved in discussions and have greater perhaps access to information, they could be brought on as an ex officio, so they do have participation. We'd also, if that were done, you'd also preserve the odd number so that you know, you alleviate the situation where you have a hung decision. So I'm only putting that on the table as food for thought.
Jeannie, did you have a comment?
Well, I just wanted, I was going to say something regarding what Sean had said. I believe that Dr. Jones felt strongly that the board needed to be more aviation-oriented and aviation-specific, so that it was not a community board, it was more of a board that knew how to run, knew about how airports run and could participate in that regard, which would eliminate most of us.
Yeah, but it is publicly funded with taxpayer, this portion with taxpayer dollars and.
Right, and so
How do you
you've got
balance
this dichotomy going on between that funding and you have, but at the same time, you have the same issue at Salt Lake International Airport, because it is owned by Salt Lake City. So but do we begin a transition with one position? Or do we wait and have a larger conversation about the entire composition of the board? It depends on what we want to, how we want to move forward in the short term, and whether we're committed to investigating other options in the long term.
Yeah, I think you make an interesting point. All of you have made interesting points, valuable points. If I remember correctly, Dr. Jones' suggestion was to have board members who had more of a aviation and business focus, economic development focus versus government. And this is an interesting consideration because Utah State University kind of fills both of those roles. They are a government, they're a state institution, so they are actually government, but they are very aviation focused. And I guess it depends who that appointee might be. If the appointee were an administrator, then maybe they are more in the role of a government person. But if it were somebody from the aviation program, then they're more in the role of an aviation expert.
And that would be up to us to decide.
Yeah.
If we added that 2/3 or something.
I have some concerns about the proposal at its basis. Part of the concern is that there seemed to be interchangeable use of contribution as opposed to reimbursement. The university is our customer. They have reimbursed us some of the costs that we've incurred over the last 10, 15 years on their behalf. True, we did not ask, but those costs did not rise to such a significant level until recently, when the FAA started requiring greater financial input to the airport and maintaining our certification. At that time, it was determined by the board that we could not afford to support the university from our resources in their 139 required activities. They were very responsive and indicated, yes, they wanted to maintain 139. And they would reimburse us for those costs. We didn't go back beyond the initial bump from the FAA with those costs. They have not asked for this. The university has been very active in the operation of the airport, using the airport, but also from a managerial standpoint. Aaron has served, since he got here basically, on the operations committee, which meets as needed with other representatives of users, where input is collected. This is how we can be a safer operation, a more efficient operation. The university has not been without a voice. The job of the board, regardless of its makeup, is to oversee the operation of the airport. It's not a buy-in to play, and some say, well, that's not what they're doing, but it's more than just optics, because it was the very fact that they were willing to pay that generated the suggestion that they be part of the makeup of the board. And I think that that is a flawed piece of logic. Great to involve them more, collect more input from them as necessary, but to completely reorganize, it smacks of kneeling down to kiss their ring.
Now, I have to respectfully disagree with that, John. Again, I'm looking at going forward and how they could partner with us and help us bring, you know, a tower or something. But, and again, the request was never theirs. It's like, how do we address the future? So,
The people we met with, for the most part, had only one concern, and that was their football team not have to drive to Ogden. Prior to that, with the exception of the department head, they had no knowledge that they were even involved at the airport. I said in that original meeting, and apart from the department head and the athletic director, none of them knew anything about the airport. To that point, they had no concern. All of a sudden, since it's going to cost some money, they decided it was time for them to learn something. Now, it's great to look ahead, what we're going to need, and let's the need create the vacancy rather than fill the vacancy and go looking for a need.
Thank you for that input. I do agree that I'm not sure how much more we would get by having a formal seat, because I feel like we do receive a lot of support and input from the university, from multiple people at the university. And especially, I mentioned an option of an ex officio non-voting member, and I feel like we essentially have that now with representatives from the university here at every meeting. And if we added an ex officio non-voting seat with a USU member, I don't know if that would result in any different dynamic from what we have now.
well, again,
Because we get that input already.
but on this board, you have a county executive and a mayor. I mean, do you have someone from that level at the university join the board to address it on that level?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. If we had somebody from the administration level, a vice president, maybe a dean, somebody like that, who could potentially direct us to other resources or information at the university, there's value in that.
Mayor and executive, to that point, again, not wanting to make this look at all like quid pro quo, and I hope that this is, anybody watching a recording later or anybody here in the audience looks at this as just open discussion that's healthy for us to think about a bigger picture and moving forward. But I love that you've referenced having them help us, regardless of a board position, but maybe feeling that much more invested if they had one because of that, with an airport tower. But another suggestion that I don't know that this board has conclusively accepted Dr. Jones's report and recommendation by recommendation said which ones were thumbs up and which ones were thumbs down. And so with that, I would say that I feel some level of ambiguity of where this board would like to move forward with certain recommendations. One of those that he made was pretty bombastic, pretty large as an investment goes, that like the airport tower would be the idea of a parallel separate runway to the west in order to preserve the flight program while deconflicting airspace for our current runway asset. Keeping in mind that as growth happens, because we certainly seem okay with it for now, and I'm sure there's a variety of opinions on what right now, but if we think about our population growth, the what if around feasibility in 10 to 30 years, having commercial flights, whatever that looks like, But we also know we wouldn't be able to build such an asset like another parallel runway within the next 3 to 5. And it sounds as though we feel the airport towers, priority-wise, more important than that runway. If we had someone, whether they were administrative, would, regardless, I guess, whether they're board member, advisory, the dominant attendance that we always seem to have here at our meetings by USU personnel, would we be getting their help to make capital requests of the state legislature, the FAA, for those kind of investments that work as well? Like, I love what the mayor said, and it reminds me of tourism, right? When we spend tourism tax dollars to build assets that help the tourists and makes their time in our community more enjoyable, when they're gone and we're not bothered by them, we have nice things in our community that add to our quality of life. And the university's programs do the same thing for our airport. And we're better off because we have the R fire truck and et cetera and so forth. Could we get them, to say the same thing and buy into these kind of investment opportunities? Or are we just hoping that they will, whether they're a board member or not? So again, kind of rhetorical questions, because I know they're not here in the room to answer that in the way that folks have authority, but.
Okay.
Sorry, Brett, but thank you for your time.
Oh, he had to leave. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're clearly not ready to vote. I mean, we can continue to have some conversations, but, I mean, again, and that's part of it, as a public body and where we do the business in the public, we kind of have to have some of these messy conversations in a public venue, because that's the open meeting law, so.
So I would move that we continue this to the next meeting?
Well, and I don't think we even need a motion to continue, because it's such on the agenda that it's either a discussion or consider, but.
It's up to
But
the
you're
chair.
saying bringing the discussion back and.
It's up to the chair.
Well, and I think one of the later agenda items, our next scheduled meeting is July 3rd, and I'm wondering if we want to reschedule, cancel that, because people may be gone. So,
Okay, so is there anyone else who would like to add anything else to today's discussion about the airport authority makeup?
I mean, I like this, continuing the discussion, I just would like to approach it from the perspective, and I really like what Sean said about the recommendations, and if the board has given a yay or nay on the recommendations, I think that would be a useful exercise.
Maybe
to go
that's-
through, and maybe
yeah.
the one we start with is the board
Yeah,
recommendation.
okay, maybe next
I
time,
mean, that's a more complicated,
Yeah,
I mean, again,
yeah.
Sure.
we've tried to kind of address some of the low-hanging fruit,
Yeah.
excuse me, but, and again, there were some of his recommendations we disagreed with, but.
Or maybe
And if
we
we
start
just-
with the easy ones and.
Yeah, I
easy
mean,
ones.
is the county really in a position to take over the airport? Because again, the county does represent, excuse me, had a frog, all those cities that you mentioned that maybe don't have representation right now, but,
And a special service district or some other mechanism for governance that also has land use authority to some degree or some buy-in from, because where we are right now, notwithstanding FAA regulations, but some of those neighboring cities could take a flippant approach to say, I don't really care what's in the benefit of the airport, I don't benefit from that. I might disagree with them, an economic development professional in my perspective, and we might politically say, well, that doesn't seem like a great way to get along with your neighbors, but sometimes those quandaries come up that municipalities don't always get along. So I'd hate to see them feel disincentivized to care about the regional impact, especially where communities to the north may have greater direct access via the north to properties that abut current airport functions, and what those could be over time as economic development related to the airport. And just like we've had the conversation about hangar space, one could use it for miscellaneous junk storage, but that's not the highest best use we perceive for hangars. I think generally speaking, we'd want to look at land development much the same way, that there should probably be something central to logistics and aeronautics if it's going to be development. So to the point I think Keegan and the mayor were just saying is, if certain recommendations, we can just easily strike off that we don't agree with those recommendations from Dr. Jones, it may help to define for us what our board does or doesn't need to change anyway. Because we're like, well, you know, if we keep this recommendation, then we need more stakeholder involvement. But if we're not going to subscribe to that, that's a good one for us, we can keep our board simpler or involve more stakeholders.
Yeah, and I think Jeannie's point about future growth we should focus on that too, because if you look at other decisions going on in the county, it's a pivotal time right now. In the next 10 years will define a lot of things. You know, we were talking about how fire districts will be managed. There's a discussion of a rec center. There are things that who governs it and the composition of the board and how that's funded. Those are all happening right now. I think they'll shape the way the future goes. So I think they're important discussions to have, even if they're big, even if they're hard. Like, might as well start now and try to tackle some of these things. Because if we just wait it out and we're a victim of circumstance, I think we'll wait too long and the growth will happen without some architecture.
And as David mentioned, we could, I mean, as the county executive and mayor who appoint several of the seats, we could, you know, change our appointees and, represent, I mean, the county could represent, have someone from the adjacent cities, or, Logan could appoint someone from Utah State. So we could, within that format,
Yeah.
do some restructuring with the current structure without amending the agreement.
Right, it's not totally restrictive, but
Okay, well,
possibility.
it sounds to me like there is an interest in continuing this discussion and maybe including, considering more directly the recommendations from Dr. Jones about our board makeup. So let's put that on our agenda for next time and move on from this topic today, unless anybody has anything else they want to add. That would bring us then to number 5 on our agenda, which is discussion of our next scheduled board meeting. It would normally be on July 3rd. And what does the board think about that? Is that going to work? Are people going to be in town? Will we have enough to get a quorum?
Look at my calendar.
As far as I know, I'll be here.
Yeah,
I'm here.
I'll be in town.
I won't be here, but again, if, as long as you have a quorum,
Okay,
I will most likely be gone, yeah.
you're good with that date? Okay. Okay, it looks like we only have one conflict so far. So if we see more before then, and as always, if we don't have anything else that needs to be considered.
It can be agenda driven too.
Yeah, we'll look at what needs to be on the agenda.
And reach out to Ryan and Brett.
Yeah, so we'll tentatively, we'll schedule on July 3rd our normal date, and we'll look at what we have for the agenda. If there's anything that needs to be addressed by then, we'll move forward. If not, maybe we'll bump.
And then maybe on future agendas, we start taking some of Dr. Jones' recommendations and put one on the agenda. And, I mean, we dealt with a couple, like the landing fees. He recommended charge everybody landing fees. And, the feedback and the decision at this point was just the larger. So, we've dealt with some of them.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. Okay, is there anything else that needs to come before this body? If not, we'll be adjourned until July 3rd. Thank you all.